Good morning, good afternoon, and evening, baseball fans. Welcome back to the Barstool Baseball Show. It is Monday. This is the Power Ranking panel, and as always, I am joined by a collection of experts, Chris Klemmer, co-editor-in-chief Hubs, and Chris Castellani. And off the top, Klemmer, you showed up pissed at some ownership stuff. Pissed.
Yeah, I'm just kind of disgusted again at shitty owners pretending to be poor. The Monfort brothers in Colorado, they had a 30th anniversary. They've been a baseball team for 30 years now. Marvin Freeman, who was a pitcher for the Rockies in the 90s, and I know it's kind of going way back, but if you look at his 1994 season, it's one of the greatest seasons by any Rocky pitcher. He had the league winning percentage, had an ERA under 3, despite pitching in Colorado. So what do they tell Marvin? Oh, you can come to the reunion, but you got to pay for your own hotel and airfare. And it's just like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, what are we doing? If you invite someone, typically when teams do these things, which are lovely, the Orioles just did one last weekend for the 1983 Orioles. Like, when you do these, they're awesome. The fans love them. It's awesome for the players to get together. You have to pay for their hotel and airfare. Stop it. You are a Major League Baseball team that gets a shitload of money all the time. It's just insane. When you look at what they make from TV revenue alone, they can't afford for Marvin Freeman's flight. He wasn't asking for first class. Put him on, Spirit and just get him there. What are we doing? And then I'm mad at the Brewers ownership. It's a political battle. A lot of it is just, I believe it's a lot of posturing, but it's just cruel and unusual to fans. And they're saying, hey, look, we might move when the lease is out with Milwaukee. We're considering relocation when this lease runs out in 2030. Now, if you look into it a little more, you understand it's a lot of politics. Democrats, Republicans are fighting in Wisconsin. That's fine. I'm obviously not going to delve into that. But I don't like when these owners use the fans' hearts as leverage with these politicians. And the Brewers don't own, American Family Field, or they call it now, Miller Park is the appropriate name. The Brewers don't own that. They lease it. And, like I said, a lot of this is posturing. But if you're an older Brewers fan who was around in 1966 when the Braves left Milwaukee, and we all laugh at it, but there are guys in their 60s and 70s who remember that. And now you're hearing your team could leave again. That's especially cruel. And don't forget, Milwaukee, breweries, you assholes. You got the team because Seattle left, because Bud Selig pulled a lot of shady stuff to get them to Milwaukee. The whole thing is crooked. It's awful. It's evil. I hate it. I hate owners.
All right, so right now, fuck the Monfort brothers, which usually we don't like those guys to begin with. They're dumb. Whether they do spend money in free agency or whatever, they're just not smart. They shouldn't be owners. And this Milwaukee stuff, the fact they do have a campaign going on right now to save the Brewers or keep the Brewers in Milwaukee, that shit's 7 years from now. That should never be a part of a conversation. Milwaukee sports fans in general are some of the best sports fans in the country. They're diehards. They're lunatics. Those people absolutely deserve a baseball team. And I would like to say also off the top, whenever Klemmer's mad, I feel more of an obligation to bring a good show. Like when Klemmer shows up pissed off at owners, or you got this bone to pick or a chip on your shoulder, because you've been walking around with this one for a little bit. You've been waiting to get that shit off your chest, Chris.
I've been mad at owners for I feel like a month now, between, the idiot John Angelos, and now I got the Monfort brothers and Mark Anastasio on my shit list. I just feel like these owners are being especially mean to fans who have come back, after COVID. The attendance is way up in baseball, pitch clock, all these good vibes. But what do the Major League Baseball owners do? Just take a big dump over it, like what they always do. Fuck the owners.
Boys, let's have a great show. This is the Power Rankings panel. Every week we get together. It is Sunday morning. We have not watched some Sunday games yet. Now, they're just a little small taste of the kind of what we're going to work through here to put together the best 1 through 9 in Major League Baseball available. Last week we lucked out. No Sunday game results altered the ultimate perception of the rankings. Some people did talk some shit about the Cubs being at 9, but overall I thought last week's 1 through 9 was the best that we've put together this year. We'll see what we get into this week. I don't have any other notes other than I know we're just going to have great dialogue. Stuff's going to come up along the way. Hubs, Castellani, good to see you, motherfuckers. Let's have a nice show.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Want me leading off?
All right. Yeah. Oh, our batting order is Hubs 1. I am 2. Klemmer is swinging that big old wrench in the 3 spot. And then we got Castellani 4. And we repeat these. So who picks first, picks fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, etc. So Hubs, take us away.
All right. No, sugarcoating it. The Atlanta Braves remain at number one. The magic number for them this week is 34. Why 34? They're 34 games over 500. And they've scored 34 runs so far against the New York Mets this weekend in 3 games. Saturday's first game of the doubleheader. God rest your. Listen, we talk about like diehard fans and all that. If you went to Citi Field this weekend on Saturday, I think Meek Phil did it.
I did too.
Yeah,
Shit. Look at this.
God bless your soul, man. I don't listen. You can be a diehard fan and not go to those games, man. That is just like you have nothing else to do with your life than to watch the Mets just get obliterated by the Braves. That first game was something else, and then you bring in dog's barking at me. The dog's mad about the Mets too. That was. I mean, you knew what was going to happen because the Mets are fielding a team that's like 66% minor leaguers, and that might be putting it lightly. But man, oh man, the Braves put it to him. Matt Olson has taken over the home run lead. Shohei Ohtani, sneaky, has only hit 1 home run since like July 29th. He's hit 1 home run, so he has slipped up there. He's still at 40. Matt Olson now 42 big flies, leads all of baseball. You look back at his contract, and you kind of look back at that whole situation with Freddie Freeman, where obviously they let him go move on like that. They had that whatever there was a he said she said a little bit there. He goes to the Dodgers. They bring in Matt Olson. They sign him this big deal, which is considered for a big deal for them because they convince Ozzie Albies to take a $5 million deal over 12 years. So like they actually give up some coin for Matt Olson. You look back at it now, it's like, well, that's a bit of a bargain now. That contract. So, man, the Braves just do it right. Are they peaking too early? They ran a graphic yesterday of how they believe playing these guys every single day, creates this like winning environment and this great chemistry. Does that eventually run them into the ground? We'll see in October. But right now, man, they are full speed ahead and just destroying everyone. And God bless me. They play Luis Severino pitches against them this coming week. I don't know what's going to happen there, but the Braves are unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up Olson because I tweeted this out last night. Freddie Freeman debuted in 2010, and Matt Olson, I believe, is signed through 2030. That means the Atlanta Braves are going to have a 2-decade stretch in which they've had a, at worst, perennial all-star and at best Hall of Fame first baseman in their lineup. I mean, just a pretty ridiculous. It's kind of like the fucking Colts going from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, he's having a monster year. It's one of the best offenses I've ever seen, and it seems like it's getting better right now. Like, it seems like Michael Harris keeps hitting, Acuna keeps doing his thing. It's just a remarkable lineup. The pitching's been rock solid lately as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Braves, I just saw the Braves I went on Friday, too. And it is wild how good this team is. I had never seen a position player pitch. I've been to hundreds and hundreds of Major League Baseball games. I got to see 2 yesterday because even the Braves pitch position player who, guess what? He pitched a scoreless inning. Even their position players are good pitchers. I don't know what the Braves are insane. And we talk about that first base, Chris. That's a great point. You know what I think of when you bring that up? I think of like the Red Sox left fielders. They went from Ted Williams to Carl Yastrzemski to Jim Rice. So, I mean, that was like quite a stretch there. I had a Hall of Famer. And you're right, the Braves are doing that at first base. But they're just great in these balls the Braves were hitting. If you know Citi Field, one ball went into the apple, which is dead center. I think it was Austin Riley. And it was a shot. It went into the apple and bounced out like with force. Like it was just a shot. It's amazing. This Braves team is disturbingly good. And you're right, Hubs. The only thing is that they're just peaking too early. I have nothing negative, even remotely, to say. I don't know. I just watched them just kick the shit out of my Mets.
Also, go listen to Matt Olson on Part of My Take. He was great this week. It's gonna piss you off as a Mets fan of how likable that guy is.
So I reached out to Matt Olson and said, well, behind the scenes, and said, hey, man, when you guys come into town for Wrigley, our office is right down the street. Pop in, would love to do something with you. And he says back, hey, good to hear from you. I just talked to Big Cat. Can't wait to come in. I was like, oh, okay. got a little bit, that's why they're the number one podcast. By the way, I want to bring this up about Big Cat. 1 billion downloads is I really just want to put this into context, is 1,001 million downloaded episodes. That's in fucking insane. So I just want to congratulations to Dan, my godfather in content, a guy who's still out for me. So that was just like a funny Matt Olson thing I was going to drop before we came in. That's how good he is. He doesn't even do they hardly even talk to baseball players. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, when the Braves are in town, and Olson is like a big stoolie. Shout out to Matt Olson too. Yeah. That's more reason for us to like him because he's such a fucking good dude.
Yeah, Short Porch was on pace for 1 billion, but we just ran out of time with recording. So you could kind of asterisk us in there, but we just didn't have the time with me, the editor-in-chief stuff. Tommy's doing Tommy's Smoke Show. Marty's fucking around. Yeah, but we just didn't have the time.
Sign Shohei and bring the show back. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this for a second on the Braves. I had this question. I love that we brought up Matt Olson before we get to the second pick. When they didn't get rid of Freddie Freeman, but he wanted to stay in Atlanta very badly, and he got more money, and it was just a better situation with the Dodgers. So for Alex Anthopoulos not to turn around and then to give the money to Olson, and I love your projection, Chris, to say for 2 decades. So I was just wondering if anybody off the top of your head, the only other name I had was Pete Alonso, but who would be that? The Braves really did trade out the best first baseman in the National League, and then we're like, we'll take Matt Olson, who over this contract will be the best first baseman in the National League. Is there another first baseman that you could think of where you're like, man, if you could, they literally picked the best replacement, right?
Yeah, I mean, the other option was Rizzo, right? I feel like it was those guys, and then, the Yankees brought him back. But I feel like he was the only other option, a little older, though. And
Matt Olson's going to have, 55 home runs this year. There's no other option. They went and got a guy who's going to hit over 50 home runs at a lower cost than Freeman. And
I'm just talking about at the time. At the time, Rizzo was the other option.
It worked out to be. I mean, so there's no other option. There was nothing, you know what I mean? There's they couldn't have done any better.
No. They
literally couldn't have done any better. They're going to have a guy that's going to have, 53, 55, 57 home runs a year, which is insane.
Yeah. Crazy.
All right, I'm up in the 2-hole. I'm going to take the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, fair.
They just haven't dropped a series. I think we're at the point where they just keep rolling. They haven't dropped a series. They think they're 10 of the last 11. They've already guaranteed a series victory against the Giants. I do just want to talk about Corey Seager for a second, because since July 1st, he's hitting .355 with a .396 OBT, a .742 slugging percentage. He's a .742 slugging percentage since July 1st. Now, I know he's been banged up a little bit over the time and over the season, but he leads Major League Baseball in wins above replacement per game and per plate appearance. So at the smallest metric, I really don't, and I don't know how much success he's going to have in order to be considered properly rated. First off, I should start this with, do you guys think the Texas Rangers are fair to put him in second place?
Yeah. Lost 1 game since the deadline.
Okay.
They don't fucking lose. Injuries and all, they are not losing. They're playing some good teams. And we'll talk about the Astros in a second. The Astros have been playing great. They can't gain any ground. I mean, they're going on the road in San Francisco, beating the piss out of them. They're 9-1 in their last 10 games. The offense is explosive as shit, and they've done this without their best starting pitcher. This is a really impressive stretch.
Well, they've added 2 pitchers, obviously. They added Montgomery and Scherzer, and those guys have made 4 starts. If you combine it, it's an ERA under 3. And that's what happens when you go out there and you go and get good assets at the deadlines when you don't. And the Orioles are playing great too. I'm not shitting on that. But that's the difference between having ownership that will spend and make a real commitment. And you look at that; it's very impressive. And especially what the Astros have done, the fact that the Rangers are nope, not yet. That's pretty good.
Yeah, Aroldis Chapman has 26 strikeouts in 13 innings out of the bullpen. So old Aroldis Chapman stuff. Great points about Montgomery and Scherzer because they have looked combined exactly what you need. I think some Orioles fans are going to be pissed off because they're just perpetually feel like they're disrespected. But as we just show it this week, it's the Rangers just a little bit more this week. We're going to see an arrow change on the graphic. Like I said, I know some people are going to get mad about it, but
I think if you just look over the last few weeks, it kind of makes sense. Also, run differential wise, 182 for Texas, 63 for Baltimore. That's significant.
Yeah.
Come on.
Thank you, Hubs. I'm starting to like Texas as like a big time American League favorite now I think about it.
Oh, I wouldn't go that. I mean, the Astros.
Yeah, I
are
don't know
really
if I go
good.
that far.
I mean,
I know. I like their lineup that much more, and I want to see Scherzer versus Verlander in a playoff game.
Those two teams, if it goes chalk, and that's our LCS, whew,
would you rather take a chalk ALCS or a chalk NLCS this year?
ALCS.
NLCS.
ALCS because it might not matter who the Braves play.
Braves Dodgers could be really interesting. The Dodgers are really good. I'm going to talk about them in a second.
Yeah, when we get to the Dodgers, because I fucking loved what I saw. I sat down.
Might get them very soon.
I sat down and had a nice chance to watch Clayton Kershaw. Look.
He's still the man.
Okay, let's get back to that in a second. We're cool here with the Rangers. And again, this isn't really too much disrespect to the Orioles as much as it is, the Rangers are just red hot right now. So 2 doesn't mean that much more than 3. And the other caveat I'd say is I still just like the Braves so much more than everybody else in baseball. Okay. Who's up third?
Me. And I'm going to continue to disrespect the Orioles. I love what they're doing. It's not that. It's just the Dodgers are that good.
That was my
Dodgers here at 3. So I wrote a blog about it this week. There are 2 division records, the 2 division races I'm willing to call. Obviously the Braves in the East, and I'm calling the Dodgers in the West. If it was the election, I have the little board behind me and everything. The Dodgers win the NL West. Urias looks back. He's looked really good. And then just what Carl was saying, that Kershaw start, man, that first inning, you knew. He's, I know it's against Colorado, it's in LA, so I get all that, but you could see him, he's just hitting all the spots and said, oh shit. Grandpa's back. And he's just hitting it. And then the Dodgers played really well. There's a stat I saw, the Dodgers have the best starting rotation ERA since August 1st, something like that. And our whole thing was the Dodgers starting rotation isn't very good, in July. And that's what kind of was scuffling them. Starting guys like Michael Grove, it was just kind of a mishmash. But they seem to be getting the pieces together. Their offense is still really clicking. The Dodgers are just terrifying to me. It's really close for me. The Astros, Orioles, Dodgers, and Rangers, they're all lumped in together. So I don't, I know Orioles fans might be upset. There's nothing against the Orioles, just the Dodgers are that good. But that's my pick. I don't know if you guys have a problem with that or not.
No,
I don't. I can't with the offense that they have going right now. Going back to first baseman, Freddie Freeman is having one of the most unbelievable seasons. I mean, this is really special. This is potentially the best season of a Hall of Fame career that we're seeing from Freddie Freeman right now. You brought up Kershaw. What's so weird with Kershaw is there is this idea that he's fallen off. He's only fallen off due to injury. His career ERA is 2.4 something. Every time he pitches, he's still putting up 1s and 0s on the in terms of earned runs. I mean, he's still the man. We'll see what happens come October. But yeah, I think that over these last several months, they're an experienced team that is very much aware of the marathon element, not the sprint element of Major League Baseball. It seems like they're starting to come into their own, have been over the last few months. I still have my question marks about the depth in that rotation and what happens once you get beyond Kershaw. But if they come around here, maybe they could be kind of the antithesis of some other Dodgers teams, because it's always felt like other Dodgers teams got crazy hot in the summer and were just never able to sustain it come October. Maybe this is the team that has the great second half, goes in hot into the postseason. This is really the first time since the season began where I've looked at the Dodgers and said, yeah, I think they could probably end up winning the whole thing. I mean, they've been that impressive lately.
They have 4 hitters with 23 or more home runs. I think the Dodgers have 5. And if you look at the rest of baseball, there's something like 13 or something. So those 2 guys have almost half of the guys that have 23 or more home runs. It's insane how good they are. And
I love that they hit Mookie Freddie 1-2. Here's just the absolute best you can deal with. Kershaw's spots that he was hitting, what makes Kershaw great? Obviously, the stuff's filthy. He's got the plus breaking ball. And he's got the wide array from 4-seam fastball to that curveball. of cutter, slider. I'm sure he's been throwing a sweeper for 15 years, not even knowing what the fuck it was. And he can just change and mix all that stuff. But what makes him so unbelievably good, because he was only throwing fucking 89, 90, 91 miles an hour against the Rockies. What makes him so good is the fact that every single pitch looks the exact same out of his hand.
Right.
It is impossible he could be throwing 83 miles an hour. If he still has the same depth in change in speeds and stuff, it is nearly impossible to pick up on him. It would be so cool to watch if him throw another 8 years in the big leagues and just slowly transition to Jamie Moyer when he was with the Phillies. And then we'll be sitting around telling our kids, like, no, back in the day, he used to be throwing 97 gas, but he's just still doing it with perfect mechanics.
You're absolutely right, Carl. And this is the difference between him and Noah Syndergaard, right? Noah Syndergaard when he came up, he had 97, 98 mile per hour, 100 mile per hour stuff. Awesome. And he couldn't adjust. It's not easy to, like, if people think Kershaw's always been great. Well, yeah, he's always been great, but he had to change. And that shows the intelligence of the pitcher. That it shows you so much when guys can make that shift in their career and become a different kind of pitcher, but still remain great. Look at Maddox. Like, Maddox pitched. He could have kept going. Like, yeah, he was like a number 3, number 4 starter, but he was still a pretty good number 3, number 4, even at the end, because he could always hit his spots, even though he couldn't hit 90 miles an hour anymore. And, like, you're right, Carl. Like, imagine Kershaw. If Kershaw wanted to and his body could do it, I think he could pitch another 10 years because he's that smart. But I don't know if he wants to do that. Just from kind of words out of his camp, he sounds like he's someone that's going to more likely to retire sooner rather than later.
Yeah. One more thing on the Dodgers. Pretty much like everyone that got the deadline has hit. Like, they didn't make a big splash. Like, people a few months ago probably like, oh, they're going to get Ohtani. And then Ohtani stays put. Ryan Yarbrough has been fine, but more than fine. Ryan Yarbrough just works perfectly for them. Lance Lynn's made 3 starts and has a 2 ERA.
Yeah.
Joe Kelly hasn't given up a run. Kike Hernandez is hitting 300 with an 800 OPS. It's just like, what? Every single one of these guys.
Rosario is slugging 462.
Rosario, I forgot about him.
They had him hitting 3 the other night.
It's just like they make it all work, man.
Motherfuckers.
They make
it all work. Bet Rosario 3rd.
They make it all work. I watched them the other night, and not to bring the Yankees into this, but I watched the Yankees load the bases with nobody out and don't get anything. And then I watched the Dodgers bring up David Peralta, and he finds the hole between first and second to take the lead and win the game. It's just like they're a well-oiled machine, and they know how to do baseball the right way.
Yep. All right, on to me, right?
Yeah, I think we're in the 4 spot now.
Yeah.
Just to recap, there's some change up here from last week. Braves consistently at 1, Rangers 2, Dodgers 3. I think I know what Castellani is going to do here at 4. Go ahead, take your second favorite team in baseball.
No, I'm switching. I considered it. I really did consider it. Do I think that the Astros would likely? Now we're getting into a tough argument. I'm talking myself out of it. I think the Astros would beat the Orioles in a 4-game or in a playoff series. I'm confident with that. It's tough, but I think so much of what's happened the last week involving the Baltimore Orioles has more to do with the fucking broadcaster than it does the actual team. The team is still playing really well. I can't allow a horrific PR nightmare and some bad juju to blind us from the fact that the Orioles have been one of the 3 most consistent teams in baseball all year. So I got them at 4. I do have them at 4. It's very close with them in Houston. I could easily understand somebody flip-flopping those 2, and next week we'll see what happens. But ultimately, even though they lost a few games this week, this has still been a remarkably consistent team with a great offense, great back end of the bullpen. Last night they had a game in which I felt like their backs were really against the wall. George Kirby pitches 9 scoreless innings. They find a way to get it done in extras. That's kind of the story of their season. I think there's been a million times in which I went, okay, here we go. Here's where they hit a wall. Here's the 5-game losing streak. Here's where the Rays catch them. Here's where the Blue Jays catch them. And every time I feel like that's about to happen, they subvert those expectations. There's something to be said about that. And it actually makes me feel better about them in October, because in October at some point things go sideways. It's inevitable, and you're going to have to claw your way out of it. The Astros are rapidly approaching them. It would not shock me if next week at this time I flip-flop these 2. But I can't allow what was a controversial week to get in the way of what's been a remarkable season in Baltimore so far.
Yeah, I like how you did that. We just optically, you can't drop the Orioles past 4 based off of like a little slow week here.
They did lose to the other team that we're talking about.
Yeah.
They lost a
they
series.
They
The
did.
Astros went into Baltimore and took a series from them, and they took a fucking save from Bautista. So if it was any other team, then I think there's a more valid argument. But we're saying the
On
Astros.
the other side, Carl,
yeah,
the Orioles are in first place. The Astros aren't. Like,
so
I think that means something.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I just wanted to make that point clear as we're talking about, you don't want to have a bad moment. I get the Kevin Brown announcer stuff trash, but it's like the team that was beating him was the team that we're talking about behind
I get
him.
that.
But it's not enough. We're saying it's not enough. The Orioles clearly four.
They're only 3.5 games back of Atlanta's record. Like, they have 72 wins. Like, they are still, like, yeah, definitely not a great week. And listen, if they had lost last night and Felix Bautista didn't just hang his nuts against Seattle and just go 2 shutout there to shut the door, maybe we are in a different situation here. As someone competing for the AL wildcard, I'm very happy he did that. Because Seattle, we're going to talk about them in a second, I'm sure. But I will say Felix Bautista, with that blown save and another run after that, probably takes the wind out of the sails of any Cy Young situation he had going there. The 0.8 dazzling ERA is now up to 1.6, I believe, something around there. Yeah. So that's a little bit of a downer for them. I have no worries really with. I think they're going to be, as they've shown all year, they will bounce back next week and continue to roll here. They've got San Diego and Oakland next week. I think they're going to be just fine.
I think it's cute that Hubs thinks the Yankees are competing for the wild card. That's adorable.
Well, the Mets certainly aren't. So we got to talk about one New York team that are. So,
wow.
Talk about none of them really, probably. But.
Are the Yankees going to be on this list this week?
No. They probably wouldn't be on the list if we ranked 20 teams realistically.
Okay, I like it. Not the Yankees part, but I can co-sign on this Orioles being fourth. And to be honest, I just want to get the devil's advocacy out there to say, so that our huge Astros contingency isn't fucking screaming at the top of their lungs. Why aren't you talking about the fact that the Astros just beat the Orioles? We're saying, and collectively, we still think the Orioles have the stronger unit. Okay. Well, then that puts us to 5, which brings us back to Hubs.
Yeah, which is me. I got 2 softballs this week, which is nice. It's the Houston Astros are at 5 here. Like, they've had a good week. They've had a good All-Star break. They've lost 1 series in the second half of the season right now. They are, they just are. I feel like 1 through 5 here. I feel pretty good about like these are. I feel like one of these teams wins the World Series 1 through 5. And after that, it's a bit of a drop off with injuries and question marks, whatever. Feel very good. These are there's a drop off from the 5th team here, but it's the Astros playing very good baseball. Verlander looks all the part. The offense is rounding in the form. They're getting healthy. It's just what they do around mid-August. Yep. And everyone's like, the Astros just aren't going anywhere, and you're not going to want to play this team in the playoffs. And here they are. So yeah, you can't move them below 5. You can definitely make an argument for 4. I still like the way we went about it though, and I think optically. Just can't drop the Orioles further than 4. Maybe in a few weeks we can. Maybe next week we can if they stumble against that, Padres, A's. But yeah, I got the Astros at 5.
Yeah, Hubs may be an idiot Yankee fan, but he's exactly right. The difference between 5 and 6 here is gigantic. 1 through 5, just like Hubs said, honestly, I mean, things happen. I get it's the playoffs, but I see the World Series matchup coming from 2 of these teams, not just the winner. Mm-hmm. These 5 teams have really separated themselves from everybody else. Now, there are some good teams at 6 through 9 that we'll talk about that obviously could sneak in. We saw the Phillies do the same thing last year, but these are the 5 best teams by far in baseball.
Now, one thing that's going to chat my butt cheeks here for the last 6.5, 7 weeks of the baseball season is I don't want to start getting too early into this, if they played each other in the playoffs, I think that who would win. That should be weighted, but I don't want to give it too much weight. I still want to stay within the boundaries of the power rankings, but I want to concede that the playoff projection aspect should continue to take on more weight as the season comes to a close. I'm just saying right now, I don't want it to be a 50% chip in the pot.
Yep. I think it's more, I'm just saying it more, not even the playoff matchup. I'm saying it more that these 5 teams are elite and these other teams we're talking about aren't. They're good, but they're not great. And these 5 teams that we're talking about here, the top 5, are special.
Excellent clarification. I have one thing I'd like to offer up to the Astros that I think is excellent. We've talked about their offense being slow and kind of not really getting going. They've had their best month in August so far, by far, with a 790 OPS. They are starting that trend up. And even if you look at what they've done as a team in August, you'd say it's their best month of the season. We would look at these numbers and say that's kind of what we expect from this Astros lineup over an entire season. So 790 OPS in August, if it ends in the 800 plus, you see some kind of big action here from the Astros closing on the season. Nobody here is surprised.
Did you guys see they had a transaction recently that really improved the team? I don't know if you guys saw this, but Jose Abreu went to the IL.
Yeah.
So that will make them instantly better, I think.
And John Singleton hit 2 home runs, which is just like Astros voodoo, Astros magic.
No.
Yeah.
That John Singleton?
Yes.
8 years after last playing for him, 2 home runs against the Angels. Yeah.
So I was right that he would turn out, huh?
Yeah. I hope you got the receipts, man, because, he finally panned out.
Good old Jonathan Singleton. So they're 5th, which turns it over to me in this 6th spot. I don't want to be too cute. They still have 146 run differential. They still have 71 wins. I know they lost McClanahan, but we'd be fucking stupid to say somebody's better than the Rays right now.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I know you roll your eyebrows at me, but last week we made this point about I think it was maybe the Dodgers, where we were like, they're kind of in their own different, weird, unique category here. I think we said that when we were 5th, or maybe we said that about the Blue Jays. I kind of feel that about the Rays right now. I mean, when you compare them to the rest of baseball, I have watched the Blue Jays closely the last 2 days, so I'm comfortable with leaving the Rays here at 6 unless someone wants to throw a hard objection on why they should be 7 and another team should be 6.
I had the Phillies at 6.
Blah.
I had the Rays at 6.
I had the Rays at 6, but
I had the Rays at 7, so I'm not going to fight too much.
Yeah.
All right, because then I think we're fine if we want it. I know you're up right after me, and the Phillies were 8 last week, and they're moving and they're playing hot. But now I'm interested in this because we're kind of landed in 6, 7 in this part of the conversation. So instead of just rolling into the Phillies and talking about them generally, just kind of, Klemmer, explain why you think the Phillies have been hot enough to where you would put them 6. And maybe the 3 of us, when we're done listening to it, are willing to do that. Because I think I know who the Rays are. We all know who the Rays are. And them losing McClanahan for the season is just he's for sure out, not coming back, no piece of the playoff picture. So that would be the one thing I'm open-minded to. Take it away with the Phillies.
Yeah, it's about starting rotation. And it's just about, look at what happened. The Rays lost McClanahan, the Phillies get Lorenzen. And, now that gives them 6 legitimate starting pitchers. We had Smitty on Barstool Baseball on this week. I think we had a pretty good conversation about the Phillies and how they're getting better. People are interested in that. Go listen to that. But, it's the Phillies, the improvements they've made from the rotation point of view, give them this solid 1 through 6 that I think is really impressive. And it's going to, I think, bode really well, not for the playoffs necessarily, but just to get them, into a decent spot in the wild card. And I like their chances rolling in. Their offense is starting to click. Meanwhile, the Rays, we say we know who they are. I kind of don't know who they are. If they are who they are since June 1st, and this is a team that's not even a 500 baseball team. If they are who they are in April and May, this is one of the greatest teams we've ever seen. So I don't really know who they are. I'm leaning toward they're more this team that's like the 480 winning percentage team, which means they're just going to be a team you just kick the shit out of in the playoffs. Although they do, the playoffs might be better for them. They have F1, they have Glass now. And, if you can somehow cobble together another decent starter from this mix, maybe it's Aaron Savali, and you go in with those 3 in a rotation, that's not bad. I don't know. I'm also, the fact that I have to, do these mental gymnastics to try to understand why the Rays could be good tells me that they're not that good of a team. But if you guys all had them at 6, I had them at 7. At the end of the day, we can't ignore what they did in April and May. It still counts.
Right.
They're a team, actually, of all these 9 teams that I have on my list, they're the one that I have the least confidence about moving forward.
They had a really bad July. And their numbers and everything looks better in August. And their second half pitching statistics, they're way fucking nastier in the second half. Their strikeouts to walk are through the roof in the second half compared to the first half. They've lost some big names, but I think they just had a really bad July. They could just be exhausted. I
know their arms are exhausted. Yeah, because they run through them like.
Well, they're all
paper.
fucking hurt.
Yeah, I will say one thing. Talking about that playoff rotation, Glasnow is a horrific postseason pitcher.
Thank you.
Horrific. One of the more overrated pitchers across the board in the entire league, especially when it matters most. So, relying on him as your ace, bad. That's it's gonna have Eflin's gonna have to big time step up in the post. They're gonna make the postseason. They got enough cushion right now, they're still winning games. But man,
Glasnow's last start, he pitched 5 innings scoreless baseball in last year's postseason.
Okay, now go through the whole thing.
I know, but it's small sample size. At that point, what are we doing? He's made 9 postseason starts.
That's a lot of
those are 2020. Fuck off. He's made 6 of his starts have been in 2020.
Sucks.
I just don't. I don't care about that. I just don't. I look at that. I see 9 starts, and it's all right. That's not enough for me. His career ERA in the postseason is 5.75. That's not good at all, Hubs. I agree. But like I said, last year he threw 5 scores. So which do you rely on? I don't rely on either of them. I don't think either of those are very telling numbers. It's not. When I look at stats, it's not how I analyze it. It's just too little.
I also don't even rely on him to stay healthy for the next month and a half.
Yeah.
Now that I believe. Now that's a concern.
If imagine he goes down.
No, they can't lose him, Eflin, or Savali. None of those guys.
Bradley becomes your 3 in the
no. That can't happen. That's what I mean. I'm doing mental gymnastics just so this team makes sense. But like I said, I'm not going to fight with you guys about it because I have them right around the same neighborhood. So
I think that I think we might be, and we've been good historically of getting in front of stuff. So there is a very good chance that next week we're sitting here confidently talking about why the Phillies are 6 and what's ever happened to the Rays. We might just be a little too ahead of stuff here. I like the debate. I like the banner. I think we're comfortable with Phillies 7. I like the Phillies 7. I know the Blue Jays were 7 last week. I would like to recognize surging efforts in some capacity over the last week.
Yeah.
No, that's okay.
So who would be? I believe Klemmer's up 7. We just did the argument there. I'm keeping the Rays 6. I know what you're saying. You bring a bunch of good points at the table, but we could be early on it. I'm keeping the Rays 6 here, so you're up with 7. And I'm assuming you're going to make it the Phillies.
Yeah, because I had the Rays at 7, so I'll have the Phillies here then for the next pick. The other thing I like about the Phillies is I feel like the Phillies is if we're talking Phillies versus Blue Jays. I feel like the Phillies have a clearer path to the playoffs. And I know that shouldn't be the measuring stick of all measuring sticks, but when these teams are that close, count. The Phillies and Blue Jays are in my opinion, the AL and NL versions of each other. They both have rosters that are really talented. They're both not young teams necessarily, but have some young players on the teams that they rely on. Obviously, I think the Blue Jays have a younger offense, but then have a little bit older pitching. But you guys can kind of see what I'm saying. I think they're two sides of the same coin if they had to have a cousin team in the AL or NL. Like I said earlier, the Phillies rotation is incredible with the 6 starters. The only worry I have with the Phillies is that bullpen. And we saw Kimbrel crack a little bit this week. Yeah. I do worry. I don't know if that's a playoff rotation. So that's something that concerns me with them. But every other aspect of this team, I like a lot.
Yeah, Turner's Turner. Yeah.
Trey Turner's hitting 481 over his last 7, 322 over his last 15. Yeah, his OPS his last 7 is over 1,200. So all that guy needed was some positive reinforcement and some claps headed his way. All of a sudden he's back. It's funny to see you see the overall theme of how you look at the Phillies when Trey Turner's going. It's this is the guy they paid a lot of money to be really good. And when he's really good, the Phillies look good overall. Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Is Trey Turner an awesome guy? Yeah. He seems to have handled this so well, and he says all the right things. I don't know. I feel like he's not a guy that has a lot of, creates a lot of drama. I don't know. I see him as a good person.
Yeah, his one defect is he's boys with Marty Mush. That's about it.
Well, we all have problems.
Yeah,
No one's perfect.
He when he was getting the booze, he would. It's the Giancarlo Stanton like way of handling the media, and just like being like, yeah, I deserve it. I deserve to be getting booed. Like if you embrace the fans like that, a raucous, hostile, diehard fan base like the Phillies, if you embrace that shit and you understand it, and you don't make excuses or hide from it or do stupid gestures to the fans, like maybe Carlos Rodon may have done. Like if you just handle it like that, they appreciate you so much more when you come out of that slump. And that's what Trey Turner's done.
For sure. Yeah, I also got to point out, too, they had an awesome, feel-good week this week with a player going deep in his first major league at-bat after 8 years in the minors. And in the same game, you have Lorenzen throwing the no-hitter. I just got to point out, if you are a pitcher who at one point pitches in Detroit, your odds of either winning a Cy Young, throwing a no-hitter, or winning a World Series are almost 100% at this point. I mean, if it was starting with Scherzer, and probably now going all the way through Lorenzen, it's pretty staggering. I'm not surprised. Now, I'm surprised he threw a no-hitter. I did really like that pickup for them. I think it not only bolsters their rotation, but he's actually pitched the best baseball of his career over these last few months. He gives them innings. He's a guy who comes prepared every fifth day. You brought up the idea of that maybe not being a playoff rotation, but with Zach Wheeler, his underlying numbers indicate that he's been way better than his ERA. So I think that you get in there with them as a 1-2. If you can just get something out of Nola as a game 3 or maybe even game 4 starter with Taijuan Walker going 3, then I think they do become more dangerous. And last year when they got to the postseason, they had 4 guys that got crazy hot. And with Trey Turner kind of doing what he's doing right now, you wonder, that lineup still has that caliber of pop in there. Bryce Harper has not been healthy all year. Obviously not his fault coming back at Tommy John. Maybe he heats up in October again. They're kind of boom or bust, but right now they're playing really well.
Philly 7.
Yeah.
Starts to feel right, Because I remember weeks 3 to 6, 7, 8 of the show being like, what are some of these teams still in here? Where are these very talented rosters? So if that puts the Phillies 7, who's picking 8th here? I believe that's
me.
That's our fucking cleanup hitter.
Yes, sir. I am switching it up a little bit here. I think the obvious choice for a lot of people is the Toronto Blue Jays, which I understand. They've probably been the more consistent team between these two all year. But no, I can't do it. I'm going with the Seattle Mariners, actually, in that 8th spot. Is it their first appearance all year on this list? It may very well be. They've played tremendous baseball over the last few weeks. It's been a bizarre series of circumstances because they didn't give up, but they sold. Paul Sewald was gone. They were hovering around 500, really below 500. And when Smitty was on here this week, and he brought up the point that he feels like the Phillies are more equipped to win the World Series than they are to make the playoffs. I agree with that point that he made on the Phillies, and I think the same thing applies with the Mariners because they've had their offensive woes, though you're starting to see J-Rod come out of it, you're starting to see Cal Raleigh come out of it, but when you get to October and the rosters shrink, I do not want to go into a playoff series having to face Luis Castillo, George Kirby, and Logan Gilbert back to back to back. I think those 3 guys can potentially be really fucking dangerous. And part of the reason I went with them here and not the Blue Jays is I continue, and I feel like I'm going to get burned if they get into October. I continue just to not trust them with their ridiculous amount. They're good, but their ridiculous amount of inconsistency. You look at their last several series, they play a series at Baltimore or at home against Baltimore, they lose 3 out of 4. They go to Boston, absolutely piss on them, sweep Boston in Fenway. They play Cleveland, lose 2 out of 3, or I'm sorry, they split. They split a 4-game set, I believe, in Cleveland, right? Noah Syndergaard looks like a fucking ace against them. I just can't get any sort of gauge on them. And until the Mariners start to cool off here, I'm going to go with the team that's ascending. I know they lost last night, but they gave up 1 run. I mean, they Kirby was fantastic. They're becoming more dangerous every day. Fucking guys.
I mean, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Big fan of this pick. Probably my biggest
I
My
just see a
favorite.
modem that's on fire right now. It's trying so hard to work. It's an old, it's an old 56.6K modem. It's going. It's trying so hard. That America Online, that Prodigy is rolling right now. As much as weird as that explanation was, where he seemed to go back and forth with him, arguing with himself.
Yep.
I agree with the result. I don't know if I agree with the argument he was trying to make. I think, but I also have the Mariners here at 8. It's pretty close between them and the Blue Jays. They're just playing so well, you can't ignore them.
I honestly didn't have the Blue Jays in my top 9. Like, if you lose to Noah Syndergaard, like I can't respect you. And the Blue Jays, Klemmer, we do this every week, where you're like, this is it. This is the other side of it. It's like they come out a week like this. It's like, huh? And then Alec Manoah gets sent down. Seattle hasn't given up more than 2 runs in a baseball game since last Friday.
Whoa!
Wow! What?
But like no one that reaction. Obviously, that's a great stat. But we know how good their pitching is, so like it makes sense. It's like, hey, when they hit just a little bit, I wonder what I don't have it in front of me, but I wonder what their record is when their offense scores more than 3 runs, like what their record is. Because
if they 4 runs or more in a baseball game, I'll guarantee you they're winning baseball games at a 70% clip. But this goes back to did they sell, or was this more of like a controlled improvement thing? Because they knew, hey, if we're going to get hot, it's going to be because of our starting pitching. Paul Sewell ain't going to do shit. They got a nice return for Paul Sewell, too. And the Diamondbacks that's a tragic turn because they bought a little pieces at the All-Star break. They've been fucking terrible. The Blue Jays were really hot. I've seen them drop 2 in a row to the Cubs here. The Cubs are 19-8 in the second half. If they win today, they're 4-2 in a second week, but they did drop that series to the Mets to start the week. But a lot of people were not talking about the fact that the Cubs had just come off a very emotional home series win against the Braves after the trade deadline, keeping Bellinger. They were super hot. I thought they would get their asses kicked on Monday in New York. They did. I thought that's an impossible trip. So what I'm trying to do is figure out where I feel about the Cubs. I know that they're still outside clicking their heels from the Philly circle. And I think the Mariners pitching has shown that they can dominate. And they're very dominant. And I just don't have that same feeling I have with the Cubs. They're just on the outside clicking their heels here, still at 9 to me. If there's another team you guys consider 9, I want to take arguments for who could be the 9th team here.
I just have one more note on the Mariners. This winning streak isn't a fluke. They are 25-10 since July 1st. Like, this wasn't like, how sometimes you have they won 8 in a row because the schedule. No, that was a legit winning streak by a good baseball team. I love the Mariners 8 and 9. I think it's between the Blue Jays and Cubs, personally.
Yeah, and I have the Cubs. I honestly didn't even consider the Blue Jays. You lose 4 or 5 the way they did. Like, that just shows me you're just like you're not over the hill, and you're not getting past the inconsistencies. They still that same bunch. So Cubs to me, the way they've rebounded here. After that little hiccup with the Mets, I like Cubs are 9.
Yeah, and the getaway game, they're throwing fucking, I think it was Kyle Hendricks 5 innings, 4-3 game, 3-2 game. If it's a blowout, if they go in there and they just look like shit, they're still playing their dicks off. And I do like the fact that they bounce back, winning in Toronto while Toronto's, What about, can we just consider, I just want to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers for a second, because they started the second half, I believe, 8 games over 500, and now they are 10 games over 500. They are so utterly mediocre and can't do anything correctly. So are we okay just saying the Brewers are hovering in that next group out?
Yeah.
You guys respect them? Do you guys respect the Giants?
The Giants, I respect the Giants a lot more than the Brewers.
Correct.
Do you respect the Giants enough to consider them at 9?
Not this week.
Not this week.
No.
In prior weeks, yeah. So the Brewers' point, haven't played toughest of schedules lately. They got the Dodgers and Texas coming up here. All on the road. Let's see how they do there, and then maybe I can respect them a little bit or throw them completely off the ship.
Man, I just want to call out the Angels, too. They had lost every game since they acquired Shohei Ohtani. Then they come back. They take that series from the Giants after losing the first game. Then they go down to Houston. It's like, all right, let's go. Let's see what they got. They've lost both games by a combined score of 22-6.
Yeah, not great. They're below 500. Jesus
I
Christ.
remember when I talked about the Cubs in this show, and you guys laughed at me. Just want to bring that up.
They were in third place. They're still in second place, 2.5 games out. They are not in the playoff picture currently, but they are playing outstanding baseball.
They're not the third wild card side. They were.
Are they the 6th wild card team after winning yesterday?
They are.
Yeah.
By half game.
Excellent. I was wrong. I was wrong.
I said they had the most talent in the division. I remember, especially, I got a lot of grief for it. Everyone's, I remember people were like making fun of me and laughing at me. I just want to say once again I was right, but that's fine.
You know what? We should change the show to where we just predict the playoffs every fucking week instead of coming in here and talking about who's hot and who's deserved the right to be recognized on a national platform. So we should have just been talking about the Phillies in May. We should have just been talking about why not?
No, I said they had the most talent in the division, and I got laughed out of the room. I got laughed out of a lot of rooms. And Hubs, you know that's true in the office. I got a lot of shit for that, and I was right. And
you're easy to get laughed at out of the room. We like
because I say things that are true. People don't want to believe it, and then they come true, and then they're like, "Oh, all right."
You said the Mets were going to get hot.
I thought the Mets are going to be great this year. Wrong about that.
That was an easy one to laugh you out of the room for, so we did
fine.
that.
I'll take my lashings for that.
Hey, I just looked real quick. The Padres have an expected record of 65 and 56 or something. They're so far away from that expected record based on the Pythagorean. When they beat the shit out of teams, they really beat the shit out of you. They just can't win a close ball game. And it's just, we're in tragedy zone now with the Padres. I want to get that out there. It's just an absolute fucking tragedy.
Yeah, it's
the Yankees' expected winning is worse than what they currently are. So they're even worse than what they're doing somehow. I don't know how that's possible.
If this was my baseball simulator, and I did the simulation 1,000 times, the Padres would be in the playoffs a lot more than they wouldn't be. They've just been the unluckiest team, one of the most unlucky teams I can remember.
All right, 1 through 9.
Sorry, I keep talking.
No, go.
No, I was just saying they still haven't won an extra innings game, right?
No,
is it road extra innings or just extra innings? One of those they were winless in.
Yeah, I knew they were winless for a while in all extra innings. I don't know if that's still the case.
It still might be that. It's insane.
This is Barstool Baseball Power Ranking Panel. It is Monday morning. We had the Braves first, the Rangers second, the Dodgers third, the Astros fourth.
No, we had the Orioles.
The Orioles fourth, the Astros fifth, the Rays sixth, the Phillies seventh, the Mariners eighth, and the Cubs still hanging on for dear life in the 9th spot. Some honorable mentions, some good honorable mention banter before we get going here to start the week. I guess I got one last thing. Is there any series or any moment or anything on the baseball calendar in the coming week that you guys are excited for, have circled?
Not yet.
It's a resounding no from the boys.
I mean, you want to have a fun over bet. Take the over when Severino pitches against the Braves on Tuesday. I don't know what's going to happen. It's amazing he has to pitch. It's so
the Yankees do go down to Atlanta this week, then turn around and host the Red Sox at home.
That was the series I had my eye on, was that Red Sox Yankees. Because it's weird. Instead of it being typical Red Sox Yankees where they're fighting for the AL East, they're fighting for the last wild card spot. And I don't think either team gets in. But if one of those teams could sweep the other, that would really put that team in a good spot.
Yeah, not to steal like the old Bill Simmons thing, but as kind of a loser leaves town kind of series. If it goes heavy one way, like that will, they're basically in the same spot. I think they're like one game separated from each other, and then 4 back of Seattle or Toronto. Yeah.
Well, there's a few series this week I feel that way about. One team that we liked, and we even liked what they did at the deadline, but that's been kind of totally in free fall in the second half, is the Marlins. Their next series is at home against the Astros. I feel like they need to at least win 2 out of 3 there, or else we're reaching a point where we kind of bury them. And I just wanted to bring up one thing, and RDT wrote a good blog about it, but early on in this season, really for the first 2 months, the Diamondbacks were featured pretty heavily on this list. I knew that they were struggling, I did not know they were 8-25 in their last 33 games. I mean, they turned into the fucking 03 Tigers overnight. I mean, that is a wild descent, which is really too bad because I thought they were getting off great vibes early in the year. To be honest, 2 months ago, if you would have asked me which team was more likely
to... About the Marlins, they are playing not only the Astros, but then they play the Dodgers this week. So the Marlins are about to get just annihilated, I think.
Yeah, and that's if they get past Colts. Maybe we win a series. Cole's pitching against them today, so like that, they're not going to have the most fun probably in that game.
That Net Zero is really acting up today, huh, Castellani?
break my fucking laptop across my knee. Yeah.
Could call a service provider instead. This is the Barstool Baseball Show. Tune in, subscribe, and if you have feedback, the best way to share that feedback is in the comment section of YouTube after you guys subscribe. We will be back on Wednesday. Until then, we'll see you guys very soon.